He is one of Hollywood's most successful directors, but Jim Abrams will tell you his filmmaking is not his greatest success. He is far prouder of how he helped his son overcome a devastating disease. After trying just about everything, this devoted father discovered a treatment that transformed not just his son's life, but the lives of thousands of other children as well. It's a story as dramatic as any movie, and as you're about to see, one in which Dateline played a part. Here's John Larson.
Action!
Patrol boats coming!
Cut. Cut. Right away back. Wait till you hear patrol boat coming.
Jim Abrams made some of the most successful film comedies of the 1980s.
Okay, let's print that. We'll do one more like that.
His movies include Airplane, Naked Gun, and Hot Shots. But the fun stopped for Jim Abrams 9 years ago. He was finishing his latest movie when suddenly his one-year-old son Charlie began having unexplained seizures.
On his first birthday, I was pushing him in a swing out in the front yard, and I noticed his head kind of went like that, and he threw his arm up in the air.
Jim and his wife Nancy took Charlie to a neurologist who did a series of tests on Charlie's brain. The tests confirmed the doctor's suspicion. Little Charlie had epilepsy.
Okay, Charlie. Okay.
But nothing prepared the Abrams for the nightmare to come. Charlie began having many more seizures.
Seizure.
Sometimes he'd have 100 seizures a day.
Another seizure.
Sometimes Charlie would just go limp.
Okay, that was a drop seizure.
Other times he'd shake.
Stiff as a board right now.
The worst kind of seizure.
Charlie. Charlie.
The Abrams brought Charlie to Dr. Donald Shields, a nationally recognized expert at UCLA, who tried to control Charlie's seizures with anticonvulsant drugs.
And then we lost control and just nothing was working. I think he probably had all of the available medications, and we were starting to look at some of the more experimental kinds of medications.
Even worse, Jim Abrams says the drugs had a terrible side effect. They were turning his son into a zombie.
You pour the drugs down the child's throat, your child's throat, despite the fact there's something inside you that says, wait a minute, this can't be right. You know, Charlie was so loaded. At times he just lived in a car seat. He was so blotto from these drugs that he was essentially non-functional.
This little girl is about to have a bad epileptic seizure.
Here she goes.
Now, while you're watching this, consider this. New miracle drugs control these terrible seizures in most of the 750,000 children in this country who suffer from epilepsy. But for this girl, and for 150,000 kids like her, drugs simply don't work. The Abrams feared Charlie was one of these most unfortunate children.
After the first drug, then there is only a 10 to 15% chance that the second drug will work, regardless of what that drug is. And the percentages drop from there.
Even more frightening, if left unchecked, these seizures can damage their brains, retarding these children forever. So the Abrams were racing against the clock. They had to stop Charlie's seizures before it was too late. They allowed doctors to operate on Charlie's brain, but the seizures continued. They even tried a faith healer, but that didn't work either.
This house was filled with tears. All of us, all the time, cried. I mean, Charlie's brother and sister literally, for months, cried themselves to sleep at the foot of his crib because they just had some sort of instinct that they wanted to be near him.
His son was slipping away. His whole family was in anguish, and the doctors had no answers. Jim Abrams was desperate. He decided to start his own study of epilepsy. He attended medical lectures and read every book he could find on epilepsy treatment. And one day in a medical library, he found something no one had told him about. A book describing a diet that supposedly cured half of the epileptic kids who went on it.
And it was like dumbfounding to him. How could that possibly be?
The book claimed that experts here in Baltimore were perfecting something called the ketogenic diet,
A diet consisting largely of something most doctors tell us to avoid: generous helpings of fat. Against his own doctor's advice, Jim brought Charlie to Johns Hopkins Children's Center, where he found the man who wrote the book, Dr. John Freeman. There, they also met a 72-year-old dietitian, Millicent Kelly, who had been working with the diet for 40 years.
So this is the one to use, even though this has a much better flavor.
Now retired and a part-time consultant, Millie had designed meals that gave kids just enough protein to grow on, combined with lots of fat, bacon, butter, and heavy whipping cream. The families have to measure every bite of every meal precisely, or else Millie says the diet won't work.
Whatever happens there to cause that seizure just doesn't happen anymore.
Okay.
And they become seizure-free, and that's a remarkable thing.
Bobby.
Finally, it was Charlie's turn to try Millie's diet. He was taken off all medications and fed mostly fats. His father says it was a miracle.
His seizures started to diminish immediately. I mean, it was pretty dramatic. You could hold him and you could kind of feel him be less intense. And within a couple days, he stopped having seizures completely.
Sometimes there is truth in the old ways, even if we don't understand them.
Dr. John Freeman supervises the keto diet at Johns Hopkins.
Do you fully understand how it works?
We have no clue how it works. And that's part of the reason it hasn't been accepted in lots of places.
Oh, look what she's
But consider the
bringing.
results. Most kids who try the diet at Hopkins can go back to normal food after 2 years, never need drugs again, and remain seizure-free.
I see results like I've been seeing. Yeah, there's so many encouraging words talking to other parents that have been on the diet, and it works.
I'm coming to get you. I'm coming to get you.
Jim and
I'm coming
Charlie
to get
returned
you.
to Los Angeles, where Charlie thrived.
I'm coming. Here I come. Here I come. I'm coming. I'm coming to get you. Here I come.
No longer a zombie on medications, the seizures were gone. But the story doesn't end there.
All of a sudden, your eyes open up in the middle of the night, and you say, wait a minute. You know, this didn't have to happen. 90% of these seizures didn't have to occur. Waking up around the clock and pouring drugs down his throat didn't have to occur.
Jim was angry and puzzled that none of the 6 doctors he went to for help ever mentioned the diet.
What has stopped Charlie's seizures has been in existence for 70 years. It's been sitting there. It was waiting for him.
You had some knowledge that this diet was probably working back at Johns Hopkins, and yet you dissuaded the Abrams from attempting it. How come?
Well, because I don't think we had exhausted all of the medical approaches yet. There were actually still other medications that we hadn't tried yet.
Dr. Freeman tells us that 50 to 70% of the patients that come through his doors and get put on the diet have success. Can you think of any drugs in these hard cases that have 50 to 70% success rates?
Probably not anything that comes up to that level.
So why are modern doctors ignoring this diet? Charlie's own doctor has a surprising answer.
There's no big drug company behind a ketogenic diet, and there probably can never be unless somebody starts marketing sausage and eggs with cream sauce on it as a drug.
You're saying that, in a sense, one of the reasons that the ketogenic diet is not popular at this point is because there's not a big drug company behind it selling it to the doctors.
I think that's probably true. I hate to say that, but I think it's probably true.
It does not come in a pill form. It cannot be administered with a scalpel. And the only people who profit from the ketogenic diet are the patients.
When we left the Abrams family in 1994, Charlie was 2.5 years old, and the seizures had stopped. But as Jim would soon find out, Charlie's life, as well as his own, were about to change forever.
Getting the word out about Charlie's new diet makes a difference for thousands of children and sends Jim Abraham's career in a whole new direction.
I actually got to call her up one day and say, Meryl Streep is playing you, and we made a movie about the ketogenic diet.
Charlie's father starts a crusade. From our studios in New York, here again is Stone Phillips.
Returning to our story, Hollywood director Jim Abrams has found a way to stop his son Charlie's previously uncontrollable seizures with, of all things, a diet consisting mostly of fatty foods. But as the family would soon find out, what seemed to be a successful treatment was not necessarily a cure. Here again, John Larson.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Charlie.
It had been 2 years of the so-called eggs and bacon diet, and Charlie Abrams was feeling great. His parents, Jim and Nancy, couldn't have been more pleased.
Our experience with the diet was he was seizure-free and drug-free, and his EEG, which had been a mess, cleared up, and he was healthy.
Under the plan, most children go off the diet after 2 years to see if they have outgrown the disease. So in 1996, when he was 4 years old, it was Charlie's turn.
The lore of the diet back then was that if a kid has done as well on the diet as Charlie, that you can wean him off the diet, then he'll be fine.
Right.
But that wasn't our experience. We took Charlie off the diet, and his seizures came back as heavily, as profoundly, as destructively.
As many and as violently?
Yeah, as violently as initially.
In that same year, one seizure was so bad, Jim and Nancy rushed Charlie to the emergency room, fearing it would cause brain damage. After all they'd been through, the Abrams were back to square one.
So we called Dr. Freeman at Hopkins and said, you know, that was a refresher course we weren't interested in taking.
Dr. Freeman had 3 suggestions: do nothing, put Charlie on drugs, or put him back on the diet. Going back on the strenuous diet meant endless hours of meal preparation for the Abrams. Every bite had to be measured down to the gram. The right balance of high fat, high protein had to be exact. But for Jim and Nancy, the decision was easy.
So we instantly put him back on the diet.
Right.
And a day later, his seizures were gone.
Once again.
Again, as dramatically, his seizures were gone. He was just fine.
The Abrams would try to take Charlie completely off the diet again 2 years later. But before we tell you more about what happened, you should know that as much as the diet was changing Charlie's life, it was transforming Jim's as well.
A father's desperate struggle to save his son from a terrifying
Jim says the
illness.
original broadcast of Charlie's story was like the breaking of a dam. Tens of thousands of emails and letters from families with epileptic children flooded Jim's office.
And one of the letters that we got from somebody who was on the diet and saw Dateline that night was a true story about another family who had found the diet and had to go through extraordinary circumstances in order to get their kid on the diet.
Jim contacted the family. The mother shared their story, and what happened next could only happen in Hollywood.
And you know, I actually got to call her up one day and say, Meryl Streep is playing you. And we made a movie about the ketogenic diet.
What have we got here?
In 1997, Jim told their story in a made-for-television movie, First Do No Harm. Once again, the diet was on the national stage, reaching families whose doctors had failed to tell them about it.
When he was on the drugs, he was a zombie. I mean,
Families like Jim and Jennifer Southerns of Palmdale, California. All 4 of their children suffer from epileptic seizures. After seeing Jim's movie, they first put their eldest son on the diet.
We went from 30 a day to none, almost.
The seizures were shrinking, and it was less, I mean, it was unbelievable. We were like, oh my God. You know, we were really happy, but we were also saying, you know, we could have did this a long time ago. You know, we could have not went through that, you know, years of drugging him, you know.
They put their other 3 children on the diet as well, and again, it worked. All 3 seizure-free.
I was really like mad when we found out about the diet, because we were like, wait a minute, we didn't even get that option. No one even came and said, okay, you can take this medication, but there's also this diet. So we could sit down and make the decision.
But that is changing as increasing numbers of doctors no longer consider the diet alternative therapy, but an accepted form of treatment. Even Charlie's first physician, Dr. Shields, is a convert. One recent study supports what the creators of the diet had known. that the diet is 50 to 70% effective in reducing seizures in pediatric epilepsy where drugs no longer work. Which may be why Jim Abrams, the Hollywood movie director, has written a new script. Not for some movie, but for his own life. He no longer directs Hollywood blockbuster comedies. He has chosen instead to dedicate himself to spreading the word of a diet.
How is the new life different from the old life?
I don't want to ever minimize how much fun it is to sit in an audience and hear the laughter when you've made a comedy movie and, you know, you remember the day we thought of the joke.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Can you remember refining it and filming it, and now you can sit anonymously in the audience and hear the laughter, and that's wonderful. But to pick up the telephone and be able to talk with someone who says, I got my kid back, and you were helpful in that, you know, there's nothing quite like it.
It occurs to me you're still in the business of making people smile.
Yeah. Hopefully, yeah, that's true. You know, that's a much broader smile. You know, that's certainly a longer-lasting smile than "Please don't call me Shirley." Thank you for allowing me to appear before you today.
Jim now lobbies Washington for epilepsy research.
It's really all about the dietitian.
And runs seminars nationwide for families and doctors.
Seizures.
Diet pioneer Dr. Freeman has joined Jim on the lecture circuit.
Jim was the engine that drove this and that enabled us to do the work to bring the ketogenic diet to a conference like today.
But back in 1998, when Charlie was 6 years old, the Abrams were still trying to wean their son off the diet. And again, Charlie's disastrous seizures returned. So the family tried one last time when Charlie turned 7. And this time, it worked. Charlie has been seizure-free ever since, and he now can eat virtually anything he wants to, just like other kids. Charlie is now an active 10-year-old in 4th grade. And on this day, performing at his 2nd piano recital. The song, A Gift to Be Simple.
So what was that like, to listen to that and to think about what he's been through and how this has played out?
Yeah. It was a long time ago, but it's still...
You haven't changed that much in 8 years.
Charlie has an older brother and an older sister who have had no medical problems. And, you know, we took very much for granted each stage of their development. With Charlie, each new step of development is a new miracle. And to watch him play the piano and smile and perform the way he does, to us, that's another miracle.
Jim Abrams has set up the Charlie Foundation.